As promised, we promised to come to you live today, and we will be dealing with the matters that we propose to deal with, which is the Concordat is one of the matters this afternoon, and we should have that ball rolling within the hour. Of course, yes, we will entertain your phone calls as normal, as we will indicate to you when we would be taking those calls. And I know for a fact that some of you know that we really doesn't be on a Thursday, but this is a special edition to help you to understand the seriousness in relation to the interference with those schools, denominational school system, all right? So we will deal with that as we go along. Let me just make sure that this device is on silent. Right, so we're good to go here now. So ladies and gentlemen, of course, it seems as though we are having more murders than days. It seems like the murders in this country is outweighing the days that is available. And of course, as I always tell you people, it appears as though that you are just getting comfortable with what is happening in this country. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, as we start to intensify things here this afternoon, I want to say into your hearing some things that I feel you should pay attention to. And it matters not whether you are Muslim, a Hindu, a Christian, it matters not. A matter of fact, I really want to talk about religion this evening. But nevertheless, it matters not if you is a UNC or a PNM. The suffering that we are faced with in this country, it matters not what religious sect you belong to. It matters not your ethnic background. It matters not your political affiliation. All that doesn't matter. The fact remains is that you are suffering in this country. And ladies and gentlemen, we are suffering political oppression, economical exploitation. We are going through a process in this country that it seems as though the relevant authority, the government, that they have set the stage to get a particular result. They have set the stage in this country to place you right where you are. Because by placing you where you are, ladies and gentlemen, then the government would be able to achieve their goals that they have so set forth in this society of your demise. The government, ladies and gentlemen, they have successfully utilized the press to make the rest of the country believe that Lavantil, Beetham, Silots, Karana, Jarima, La Hoketa, and other parts of this country, they have sufficiently utilized the print media, the media houses, not only to convince the rest of the population that these areas are what can be considered criminal areas in our society. Added to that, they are able to convince the international community that you, the people in these areas, you are the downfall of society. You are the ones that is responsible for the chaos of society. They have convinced the international community. Thereby we now have advisories from the US and Britain and other countries that they will tell their citizens not to go to Laventille, not to go to Beetham, not to go to key areas which is considered to be criminal areas. But in order to fix the problem, ladies and gentlemen, you have to get down to the root cause of the problem. The government have set in place policies where they keep the ghetto areas, areas that people consider to be ghetto areas. They have devised strategies and policies to ensure that those areas remain in a condition on that dependency syndrome and not utilizing the public purse, the wealth of the country, to develop and to put in place programs that will enhance the ability of these individuals in society, where we would be able to remove them from a life of crime onto the path that we can consider to be the straight path. This government, ladies and gentlemen, they have convinced society, they have convinced you that they are not the problem. They have convinced you that the problem in this country is the people in those areas. But what the government failed to tell you and what you fail to recognize for yourselves is based on the policies that the government had implemented from way back in 1956 is what brought those communities to the point where they are today. The government have convinced you, the African people in this country, they have convinced you that poverty is a way of life, and you enjoy, you live within that poverty level, and you make yourself comfortable as though that is a way of life for you, the African people. The PNM had also made it quite clear. They have taught you that a home is not important. And when they teach you that a home is not important, today, that is why we have your sons and your daughters living in the prison. They also taught you, ladies and gentlemen, in this country, that wealth is not for you, and therefore you support the party that leads you for the majority of years in this country. And while you believe that the party is your party, and while you believe that this is the avenue where you ought to survive, they have convinced you that business is not for you. The PNM have convinced you in those areas and other areas that employment is not for you. The way of crime is the way that you should live. And that is why when you look into the prison system, to every 2 Indian individual, you will find 500 Africans sitting in the prison, because they have convinced you that crime is the way to go. The PNM is the party that is responsible for all the gang activities in this country. The PNM have utilized that element to mobilize its people and to keep you in subjection. They went as far as to utilize these leaders to convince you one way or the other that the party you have to vote for it is none other than the PNM. You have gone through, ladies and gentlemen, over and over and over. You have lived a life of promises. You have received promises until it did not only comfort you, but promise to you is also the way of life for you. So Rowley will come to Library and he will tell you that a plyboard factory, it's on the way. Memorandum of understanding had already been signed with China and Guyana and Suriname. And things will be happening very soon. And you will jump for joy and support that promise, waiting for that promise to materialize. And while you are waiting for that promise to materialize, he come to you at another election and he said to you that the dry dock in Library, it's on its way. We have already crossed the T's and dot the I's. And that dry dock is scheduled to start in the not too distant future. And you roar and you ray. And today, you doesn't even have a dock, much less to have it out there drying. No dry dock. They convince you to live in promises. They convince you to live a life of crime. They tell you, the African people, that education is not important. That is what the government is saying to you by the measures that the government implement in this society. The government is telling you that education, it's not important. So he had no problem to remove laptops. He had no problem to cut all the educational programs. Rowley had no problem to leave schools abandoned. He had no problem in leaving a university closed. He have no problem in removing the textbook grant, because they teaches you, what they teaches you is that education is not for you. And yet you glorify in your own demise. You glorify this party and lift this party up that have you living in the worst conditions in this country. This morning a man tell me, Victor Roberts, you're going against. He say you're riding with the Indians. You're going against your own. How many times we often hear that statement? But it's not only me who riding with the Indians. Rowley riding with the Indians too. Stuart Young riding with them. And Wari riding with them. The whole cabinet riding with them. So what you waiting on to ride to? They riding and they benefiting. You come off the horse. And you know what happened to you? Your pond drying up every day. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then they will come back and have you to believe that, look, we are so concerned about the educational system that we intend to interfere with the schools that is running and providing a high quality of education. The schools, ladies and gentlemen, that is on top, not because of government assistance, but because of the commitment, the discipline, the spirituality of those boards that activate in those schools. We are seeing a different behavioral pattern than those in the government schools. My question to you, the government who have all the resources are available, why the government schools are in those conditions? Why the government schools not only dilapidated, but there is no standards in those schools? Why? Let me tell you why. Because when you have a government that behaves and conducts itself with all form and fashion of criminality, behaving itself unseemly against the principles and the essence of the Constitution, what would you expect would happen in every government facility? It is chaos. It's a matter of fact, in a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, every government institution that you could put your hand in, it resembles the behavior of the government. It resembles the behavior of the government. When you have government officials with money that they cannot give account for, whether it's 4 million or whether it's 100,000, what you would expect? When you have a prime minister who behave like a four-legged animal with the long tail that always go E-R, 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 what you expect you will get coming out of the schools in this country? When a prime minister will stand up publicly and use all kind of phrases, lies, blatant lies, what would you expect? I think that every child in those government schools want to be like Rowley. I think they're using Rowley as their mentor. So they behave like Rowley. They speak like Rowley. They act like Rowley. Only remember an incident in the tea room in the parliament? Only remember that incident some years ago? Only remember the behavior? Only could remember the behavior? The teacup incident? This is what we have passing for government. And when you have individuals who sit at the hem of authority with no discipline, with no moral, worse yet spiritual values, what would you expect coming out of all the institutions that these people govern? That is what we are faced with. We are between a rock and a hard place. And the sad thing about that is until you, the people, could open your eyes and ask for that foresight to see the enemies, who they are, to see where the enemies are nesting, to see where the enemies living, to see what the enemies spending, to see what the enemies driving, to see what the enemies eating at your expense. Until you have that foresight to see who are the real enemies in this country, is until you will remain voting for the PNM. The real enemies, ladies and gentlemen, stand before you today. They stand before you today as your representatives. They are the ones that create the hardship. They are the ones that put in place measures for you to remain in bondage. They are the ones that have you living in those conditions. A matter of fact, they are the ones that blind you so that you cannot see what is real. You cannot see what is truthful. You cannot see further than the top of your nose. Those are your enemies. The one who come to you and say to you, we love you, we taking good care of you. The one who said to you that we deliver because we cares. Those are the individual that Rash Shorty I sang of. Those are the individuals who will cut your throat in front of you with your eyes open. And when you realize you're bleeding, they're telling you, don't worry yourself. Your body had too much blood. We just need to let some out for you to live. Even though they know that what they are doing is killing you. And that is where you are in this country. Every one of you who believe that this PNM government is your government. And I'm not talking about those up there, Me talking about the Rohan Sinanan. Me talking about them, Me talking about the Terrence the Alsing, Me talking about the Kazem Hussein and them, I talking about you. You, the little black boys, you I talking to. Me talking about them. I talking about your condition. I talking about where you living. I am speaking about what you're going through, the hell you're going through in life. I am speaking about you have nothing. I am speaking about those who implement the one-shot policy to kill you. After they have created the environment for you to behave how you're behaving, then they will sit and laugh and say, what you going to do? Aim for the foot? Rowley said it. You go aim for the foot. I endorse the one shot, one kill. After they have created and set the stage for you to behave how you behaving today, then they set the stage to kill you. They give the police authority to kill you. They give the police authority to abuse you. They give the police authority to do you whatever they want. And my proof of that, ladies and gentlemen, is that this government will not bring the cameras, the body cameras, so we could see how the 3 KFC bandits get killed. We could see how those guys who get shot in the car, they will never bring those body cameras, because the plan is to keep your blood flowing. You, the African man, I want to ask you, who teach you to hate your brother? Who teach you to hate your brother? Who teach you not to be in the company of your brother? Who? That is what I want to know. Who teach you? I will tell you who teach you. You will kill your brother for less than anything else. Your same brother who have to stand up on the streets with you and sell marijuana to survive. You will kill your brother. Who teach you that? Who teach you that hate? Have you not seen what you are doing is killing your own generation? When you don't kill one another, the police kills you. One shot, one kill. These days it looks like 1 shot, 3 dead. That is how it looks these days. And yet you wouldn't wake up. You wouldn't wake up and catch your breath and say, hey, we are on the wrong road. This road that the PNM have us on, it's the road of destruction. You would not wake up and say to yourself that, look, why am I seeing my brother as the enemy? When the truth and in fact, the enemy is those who make the policy to keep you in those conditions. The enemy are those who supports 1 shot, 1 kill. The enemy are those who remove and break the educational system in your community. The enemy are those who remove the trade schools. The enemy are those who continue to have you living on promises. And until you wake up, until you open your eyes and see that the enemy is the PNM, is until you will be marked for death. You think the government business about you killing each other? You think the government care about that? But you could kill each other. You could kill out one another in La Hoqueta, Lavati. All those areas, you just kill one another. When it reaches stage that they can move in, they will move in, and the 1% will occupy your lands. Well, I should take back that, because you are no land. You are no land. Half all is squatting and half all is living in shantytown. You have nothing. That is what the PNM give you. Nothing. That is what you vote for. Nothing. Wake up, African people. Wake up and see the enemies. Wake up and see that you are pointing your guns in the wrong direction. Wake up and see. Wake up and see that your brother is not your enemy. Your sister, the 6-year-old, the 3-year, 4-year, 5-year-old, that you are now murdering, those are not your enemies. Why won't you wake up? See what they have done to your brain. They have put you in a place where you believe that illegal activity is the onlyest form of life. Listen, there is life and livelihood for you. But in order to achieve and to get this life and livelihood, you have to remove those who create the situation that you now live in. And until you realize that that is what needs to happen, it is until you will remain in those conditions that you are in today. That is the reality. I want to welcome Kyle Taklal Singh as he walks in the studio. I want to welcome him to the head table. You know, I was afraid to say head table. I doesn't like to tell Kyle and Dinesh that are calling them to the head table. You know, I doesn't like to use that word. I rather tell them just come and sit up here. I rather say that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have at the head table none other than attorney at law Kyle Taklal Singh. Kyle need no introduction. What I could tell you, what you see with Kyle is what you get. It have no artificial lift here. One, it have no cosmetics and thing to dress him up and paint him up nice. You know what you see. What you see.
You're trying to tell me I need makeup. What
you see. Well, the day you put on makeup, you can sit down. The day you put on makeup, I can change your name from Kyle to Kylie. You understand? So don't put on makeup, right? So welcome, my brother, my friend. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Victor. Thank you. Good night to you. Good night to the viewers, Archie, everybody. Big business. A lot of happenings in the UNC these days. Yeah. But luckily we're here to talk about Conquer That.
You know, before you talk about Conquer That, some people call me, Victor, what you think? And I think about what is there for me to think about? I maintain a position, and I'll maintain that position all the time. I am one of the individuals, which you know, and which everybody knows. I am an individual who fights, who will continue to fight, who will always fight for democracy.
Right.
And I believe in democracy. Nobody could remove that from me. But here what? I believe in democracy outside the party and democracy inside the party. I believe in democracy anywhere I tread. That is my position. So I don't want people waste time to call me to ask me no such about this question about this and that and palace school and palace, all that kind of wash me a time to waste. You see, I find one of the things, and I will say that here tonight, one of the things I find, like, people that just get distracted so quick. Like Rowley could just, let me tell you something. Rowley could go tonight and say, hey, what happening? I sell all the port go on China. And the mark bust tomorrow, and everybody say, oh yeah, Rowley sell the port. And Rowley call a press conference. And he said, let me tell you something. I want to tell Kamla Prasad Bisasa that I ain't want to hear nothing from she. And I ain't going to tell her why today. Everybody going to say, I wonder what Rowley hear about Kamla, boy. Everybody forget the port selling.
Yeah.
So Rowley is a master of distraction. So all who want to get distracted, and all who want to talk about palace school, I think the last palace school I hear about was somewhere in Haiti,
Fiji, I think was the
Fiji,
last one.
right, that's the last place. So all that said, that don't shock me, want to hear that.
Yeah.
So I want people call me and ask me nothing like that. Because they're in my position, I'm making clear here.
Right, good, yeah.
Don't call me and ask me no notices. We have time to waste.
Certainly don't call and ask me.
Right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, last night we had Dr. Tim Gopi Singh here, and Dr. Tim were giving you some synopsis as to what took place with the last C exam and how people had to apply to the Freedom of Information to get who was the first 200 top students. Why Gaspy and Rowley and the cabinet took that decision, that is a matter for them. I ain't getting into that tonight. But we also started talking about the Concordat. And of course, you had the thesis of that already, that the Concordat was put together back in the 60s. And I think sometime in December 22nd and so on, there was some signage between John Donaldson, who represented the cabinet at the time, and the denominational boards and so on. Coming out of that, we also know that the government had an 80% kind, freehand, and also that the board had 20%, and we know that they're working hand in hand to ensure that things happen. But I want you to tell us, Kyle, from coming out of that arrangement, what have since changed? I know we have seen, I and Archie, we had put up a lot of, Archie, remember this man, what is the name again, Archie boy, who came out and talked about the C exam was racist, and I dealt with him here on this program. And when we do check, we see him in a PNM pan, we see him in a PNM get together with Steel Band. He and one was a journalist also. He died, the journalist, one died the other day.
Oh, the writer on the Express. Yeah. I forget his name.
And they talk about always discriminatory and this and you remember. So what I'm saying is, coming out of that arrangement for all these years, why Pilgrim, Errol Pilgrim was one of the guys. Coming out of that, and one of these men who does reap a bunch of money every emancipation, dress up with this big
Cambon.
Yeah, dress up with this big thing and emancipate, and it look like, I know, like the brain, but I ain't going there. But this arrangement that worked for all these years, where we had success in every aspect, because I want to say that even the government school back then were more equipped and more unique from what we see now. But what has changed with this arrangement from that time to now, where we are now seeing the government want to put its hand in that arrangement and make changes, giving the government authority to appoint and to remove and to transfer and all that. What has changed?
All right, well, I think people have to understand the Concordat very clearly and where it emerges from and why it's an important device. In not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but there are several societies where you embrace that kind of partnership in education between religious institutions.
Actually, just move me for a minute. Like I wine, I just go and get some water.
Yeah, sure. All right, yeah. So essentially, I think what the viewers have to understand is the issue of the Concordat put in its historical context. So let's take it from the start. What is the purpose and value of education? Education is essentially to ensure that citizens, young citizens, become socialized into the surrounding society and culture that they have to enter into. And they learn the norms and values of that. But they also learn skills from which they can survive in a society. That is the point of education. Sometime in the history of mankind, you had education being essentially delivered by religious institutions. The earliest institutions which delivered education were churches and mosques and places of worship in Hinduism, temples, that sort of thing. That is where education of mankind in the world came from. Trinidad was no exception. So that in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you had several institutions which were delivering education, what we call education today, which was really imparting knowledge, not only of religious affairs, but basic arithmetic, reading, writing, logic, Latin, other forms of language, science, rudiments of science. And those things were essentially being taught in religious institutions in Trinidad and Tobago before the PNM. I know people in this country can't remember a time before the PNM, but there was a time before the People's National Movement, before the United National Congress, before politics as we know it today. And that is the history of education, not only in the world, because Trinidad became a microcosm of the delivery of education throughout the entire world. So coming from that, coming from a background where you had essentially education being delivered by religious institutions, you then had a tension between an elected government, the People's National Movement, because they thought that education should be delivered by the state, or at least supervised by the state, and the traditional form of education of children being delivered by religious institutions. So at some point in our history, you had a clash.
Right.
Coming from the history where education was being delivered by religious institutions, transitioning into a sovereign democratic state with a constitution, with responsibilities for education and providing education for children, with the UN recognizing the universal rights of children and the right of children to be educated, the government felt, well, look, religious institutions, you may or may not be doing a good job, but the government also now has to oversee this.
Right.
And therefore you had a natural tension, Victor, between the state and the religious institutions in the education of children. And of course, politically, education is important because it could indoctrinate children into a certain way. You remember a time in this country used to give out a copybook, and used to have the faces of prime ministers and leaders, and that you were taught about Eric Williams and you were taught about PNM history. So don't get fooled. The PNM understands the importance of controlling the education system, to indoctrinate citizens in this country to think that they are the only proper government in this country. But politics aside for now. So you had the Concordat, which was a bargain. It was a deal struck between the religious organizations and the government as to how the delivery of education would happen in Trinidad and Tobago, particularly within the denominational schools. By denominational schools, we essentially mean the schools that are run by the various religious organizations. Somewhere in the early 1970s, do you know, Victor, that the Mahasabha, there was a motion brought in Parliament for the Mahasabha to open schools, and the PNM voted against that.
Right, I learned of that.
And the political platforms, the then Prime Minister, Dr. Williams, said that the Mahasabha schools were breeding ground for the opposition. Right? You even remember the famous comment where the former Prime Minister said that Mahasabha schools were cowsheds.
Right.
That was always the view of this government for Mahasabha schools, and they also looked down on denominational schools generally because they could not control them. And ultimately at the heart of this battle is a battle for control of the molding of the minds of young people in this country. Always keep that in mind. Concordat is not just about teaching, it's not just about the school, the physical space. It's not just about funding. What the clash is here is that the government wants to control the molding of minds in all of our education institutions. And that is a serious problem. So as I said, take it back to the history. Concordat was arrived at as a bargain and an agreement between the government and religious institutions. Now, where this dispute has come is within the last month or two, somebody had a bright idea in Balize House that they wanted to now control how teachers are appointed in denominational schools. And you may say why that is important, but when you really think about it, Victor, what is a school? A school is about learning. And who delivers the learning? Who delivers the method of learning? It's teachers.
Right.
And therefore, a very, very critical component of an education system has to be the quality of teachers and the choice of teachers that are entrenched and embedded within your educational institution, within your school. And that is why the appointment of teachers is a very, very, very important part of any education institution or any school. And the Concordat recognized that. You know, I know you put it up for your viewers last week. Yesterday. So there's no need to put it up actually. But at the end of the day, what the Concordat said is that while the Teaching Service Commission, then the Public Service Commission, had overall control about the appointment, transfers of teachers, etc., it reserved the right to denominational schools like the Mahasabha, like the TML, like the Muslim boards, like the Catholic schools. It reserved to them the right to do two things. One, to object to teachers that it felt were not on moral and spiritual grounds, etc. You could object to them. But two, most importantly, it said that all applications, if you wanted to be a teacher, all applications had to be submitted to the denominational boards first.
Right.
And why is that important? Because when you ever submit an application to a public service in this country, or any kind of application, what happens? Delay. It's lost. You don't know where it goes. You don't know who assessing it. But when it goes, I can assure you, when it goes to a denominational board, it's serious business. Because all they are concerned about is ensuring good teachers, teaching, and education. They're not concerned about politics. So when applications go to these denominational boards, they're very, very efficient. And that was admitted in a letter by the teaching service. What the teaching service actually said is that a problem has arisen over the last 3 years where they have about 3,000 applications backed up in the ministry unprocessed. So they want to bring that inefficiency in the Teaching Service Commission they want to use that to infect the denominational boards. When you put in an application at the denominational board, that application is reviewed, you're interviewed, very strong interview, you're dealt with, and you're recommended, and the boards get their teachers. And ultimately, what's the benefit of that? Students are not playing the fool in classrooms. Some of the things that you see in all these videos all over Facebook, fighting, and they are supervised by teachers, and discipline is maintained within the halls of denominational schools. And that is what the denominational boards want. Why on earth, why in God's green earth would the Teaching Service Commission and the government want to disrupt that system, which is working so well? And there's no dispute it is working well. Ask anybody whether they know about statistics or education. What schools are doing better? They will tell you denominational boards. Now that doesn't mean that there are no good government schools. That does not mean that at all. There are some government schools which are managed well. I went to Queen's Royal College. I'm not afraid to say that. I went to Queen's Royal College. It was a good school, a very good school. And I learned a lot. I was cultured a lot, so I learned. So it's not an issue about all government schools are bad and but the facts, you can't deny them. There are some denominational schools that are doing well, and they're doing very well and more consistent than the government schools, and that has to be because of something. So what the Teaching Service Commission should be focused on is understanding and learning what is happening in the denominational schools what is being done correctly and fixing their schools. The way to success is not by bringing the standard down. The way to success is by raising your own level. And that essentially is the synopsis. So what has happened, as I said, within the last month or two, the Teaching Service Commission gets the bright idea that no longer must people submit applications to the denominational boards. It must go to the Teaching Service Commission, meet up with this big giant amount of applications that are sent in from anybody. They will produce a list and then tell the denominational board, well, here what you could choose from these people. And that has never been the position. It has always been for over 60 years that if you wanted to teach and you wanted to teach in a denominational school, you submit your application to the school. Now that has a lot of advantages, and I want to tell you, I could speak for the Mahasabha. For instance, you may have past students of Mahasabha schools who want to teach. The principal and former teachers are already familiar with the person. They know their talent, they know their education status, they know the person is a good person, they know they're efficient, they're vocal, they could communicate, they're an old girl or boy of the school, and therefore they will have the command, the respect. And within those schools, you build this culture of succession and learning and excellence, and you create and you preserve that. And that is why some schools like Lakshmi Girls or even Naparima Girls, Naparima Girls being a Presbyterian school, I believe, right? They excel, Naparima boys, they excel in all spheres because you are able to maintain that culture and you have that knowledge as a school about which teachers you want, which teachers you want. Why would you want to filter that through a ministry that is failing? And you see, this goes within the wider problem in our education system of transparency and accountability. We were regaled a few weeks ago, last week, with the news that students in this country could only celebrate their excellence through a freedom of information request. You could imagine that? So you want to, you know you worked hard, studied hard, sacrificed. You may or may not have been within the top 100 or top 10 students or the top 1, the number 1 student. But for you to confirm that, rather than the ministry and the state recognizing hard work and meritocracy and announcing to the population, here is a young man or a young woman who was placed first in the SCA, that is something that other students should emulate. We're going to sweep it under the carpet. We're not going to tell anybody who come first, second, and third, and let's forget about meritocracy. And you see, that's the problem in education. It's a problem in institutions, whether it be politics, whether it be the judiciary, whether it be any institution. We must become a country of meritocracy. The currency for success and elevation must be meritocracy, Victor.
And I think you are...
Not loyalty, meritocracy.
Think you are quite right. And even in my endeavor, I am one of the individuals who always make it quite clear that whatever I do and whatever achievement may come my way, it must be on merit.
Yes.
That is my position. So I think even in the educational system, I think it would have been the ideal for the government to mirror these denominational schools and work towards putting policies in place to bring the government-run schools up to that standard.
But there was a study, and it's a matter of record. There was a study, it's in the Ministry of Education, so they have it. As late as 2021, they conducted a study as to why schools in Port of Spain and environs were not doing well. And it didn't have anything to do with religion or lack of religion. What it had to do with was culture and parenting and the involvement of parents in the education. The single most important predictor in success in education is the involvement of parents in education. Let's remember that. So there's no reason to be attacking denominational schools. That's not your problem. This is not a distraction. Mm-hmm. And you have to really wonder, what on earth is the People's National Movement, the PNM government, thinking in its education policy? They've more or less destroyed scholarships. scholastic success because you can't get the amount of scholarships that you once got, and instead you replaced it by bursaries with God knows what criteria. And there's nothing wrong, because I was one, Victor, as a student in QRC. I involved myself in every extracurricular activity that the school had, from cricket, football, chess, ecology, basketball, believe it or not. Yeah? Nah, well, I wasn't much of a girls man in my college days. My fiance watching, so I can't say anymore. Right? But yeah, I was just a straight shooter. She said just beat book. Right? But and there's nothing wrong in an all-rounded student. That's fine. But when you go, and I think Anil has made the point here several times, when you talk about scholarship for academic success, that is academic success. There are students who are professional scholarship winners. They go to school because they see the way to getting quality tertiary education by focusing on academics. And there were, at a point in time, I think about 20 open scholarships. So if you wanted to study in Oxford or Cambridge, and you know your parent could not afford it, but you had that desire and dream, you could have focused on academics to do that. That has been reduced in this country. And unfortunately, a large amount of the scholarships have now been replaced by bursaries. We don't know what is the criteria, what is the proper criteria, how they're going to apply these bursaries, but they're being given out. The scholarships being reduced, GATE is closed. Essentially, it's very difficult to get GATE funding, and it's gone down tremendously. You now have the failure to publish the results of primary school students when they do SCA. So you are systematically attacking the quality of meritocracy and achieving through hard work, the value of achieving through hard work. You're systematically undermining that in your education system, which is going to destroy the education system eventually. And that is why the Mahasabha, for one, and other denominational schools, have decided that they're going to pitch their fight here. And this is why the society has to get behind them. Because it's not just a teacher issue. As I said before, teachers are essentially a school. Everybody, I think, if you cast your memory back, you remember your favorite teacher. You remember, you would have passed through a system of primary school and secondary school, but I'm sure everybody had that one teacher. May not have been your favorite, but it may have been the teacher which inspired you to do better, to be a better human being, to be an overachiever, to be someone who wanted to do this, wanted to do that. And that is why teachers are so important in a school, and that is why, at least on the part of the Mahasabha, and I know other denominational boards, they are unwilling to surrender the right to select quality teachers to teach in their schools to ensure the delivery of high quality education to young people in this country. What the government needs to do is understand what some of these denominational schools do, what are their processes, and learn from them and bring their schools up to mark. You don't succeed by, and this is maybe I shouldn't say this around this time, but this might be a political lesson for some. You don't succeed by pulling others down. You don't succeed by pulling others down. You succeed by seeing others and rising to the challenge. Make yourself better. And I think that is where ultimately the philosophical battle lies in this Concord Act.
But Kyle, I am seeing a holistic attack on the educational system, not only in relation to the denominational schools, but I have seen that there's also an attack on the students by the government. Because when, let's just go back a bit, and let's just examine the study that was done, where the study showed that there were more than one issue that was responsible for the failure of these children. But when you, let's just right back down when they speak about parental guidance. We will have to take that right back to the point where when a parent is not able to provide for a child, when a parent have to go and look to make ends meet, and in some cases I'm talking about both parents in some cases, I know, of course, the single parent situation is another blow. But when a parent cannot provide for a child, when a government comes into office and first started to remove and to break the employment industry down, and you have so many thousands of individuals on the breadline, and then coming into that, we saw a number of business places and so on that crashed even under the pandemic. And we have the government removing the ideal where a child would have been able, a parent would have been able to access some textbook when the unemployment situation hit. And parent would be able to get a device when the unemployment situation hit, as it is hitting since this government come into power. But when you remove all these things, and then on top of that, we went back and you cut all the educational programs, whether it be MIC, GATE, NESC, whatever, just keep trimming. So you lick up the book grant, you lick up the laptops, you even lick up you even break the school feeding program down to the point where, I mean, children in some cases are actually like fighting for food in school. So when you do all that as a government, and now we are seeing that you want to infiltrate the national schools and have your way, it tells you that something has to be drastically wrong, because why would you keep touching and licking away every institution that is able to develop the child, talking from the home? Because when you break the home, you break the child. Once you break the employment in the home, then you spell disaster right there, because you are speaking about some people have 5, 6 children and they cannot provide. Some people cannot buy books, some people can't get uniform. Down on our side, I was able to do some stationaries and so on. And I even get enemy because how much stationaries I could provide, guy. And if I give who I believe is more vulnerable, then somebody else vexed because they believe that they're in a worse off situation than the person who I think was worse off. So when you interfere in all this coming up the road, I mean, there's a blatant attack on the education system, because you have to understand that when you interfere with these institutions, then what is the next thing you're doing to these children? We have so much children who will be exiting school on a yearly basis. And they exit school to do what? What they're going into, what is there for them, what opportunities are there for those individuals, more than crime, more than the gangster. So if we doesn't take stock and take a hold as to what this government is doing in the educational system, then we will have every year, we might as well make it clear that we will have hundreds of criminals on the streets of Trinidad and Tobago. So we have to take the bull by the horn. That is from where I sit. I don't know what's your thoughts there.
Well, you said a lot, Victor. I think if I could reduce that, it seems to me that the way to understand that is that it's a misunderstanding and a misconceptualization by the PNM as to how to develop a society and a country. We had just recently, 2 days ago, the Prime Minister grinning from ear to ear because he could now access oil in a Dragon oil field, which is 5 to 8 years away, conservatively. What that tells me is that while simultaneously attacking the Concordat, what that tells me, and this is one of the reasons I have always associated with the UNC. The UNC believes, as far as I understand it, maybe somebody could tell me if I'm wrong, that the most valuable resource our country has is its people. And you have to develop it's not the oil in the ground, it's not the gas that is released that we capture. There's not any other natural resource, the pitch, the whatever. It is the human beings that live here in this square footage that we call Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore we ought to develop them and facilitate them achieving their maximum capacity and potential. And how do you do that? You do that with a robust liberal education system. And therefore that is why the United National Congress, as far as I know, as far as my political consciousness has allowed me to understand, has always placed emphasis on access to education. Under Mr. Pandey, you had dollar for dollar, and that is what opened up tertiary level education to many citizens. You had then, with the dollar for dollar program, many other tertiary education institutions opening up. Under Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, there was a time in this country, if you wanted to be a lawyer, you had to know somebody to get in, you wouldn't. That was a fact. You had to know somebody. Yes, you had a few people excel and get in. But apart from that, the Hewooden class was very small. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj made an amendment to the Legal Profession Act that allowed you to go and do a course in London. You borrow, you take a revolving loan, your parents sacrifice and send you to England like me. I mean, you had to fight up for 9 months and eat ramen, right? And stay in the worst accommodation ever. But you beat book your study, you get your LPC, and you were able to come back to Trinidad, attach yourself to chambers and be called as an attorney at law. Those are some of the steps, and of course that continued and was enhanced, greatly enhanced under the stewardship, obviously, of Ms. Kamala Prasad Bisesar's administration, where she emphasized education. That was a huge thing for her, right? Yeah. But that is a UNC policy and philosophy. The PNM is interested in oil, gas, and selling oil and gas, and regardless of what happens in the country, well, we have money, we'll give out grants, that kind of thing. And that is because they are ignorant, and is unfortunate because their founder is a historian. What Eric Williams ought to have told the PNM is that societies take a leap in development not because of natural resources, but because of innovation and education. One of the greatest leaps in society was the Industrial Revolution in England. That was because of the development of the printing press and other technologies coming together in a industrialization which catapulted Britain into a world power and a colonial master. It was able to conquer the world and then encourage trade, but that was because of innovations, nautical innovations, weaving and wool and all these kind of things. They were able to do that. But that is because, again, you have to look at society's education. Guyana has all this oil and gas and that kind of thing. But if you listen to what their politicians are saying, they are also focusing a lot on training and education. That's why they passed this law which said that people have, if you want to, basically what it is, that if you want to get into a sector, you have to have a certain amount of nationals involved. Now, of course, constitutionally and legally, that might present some issues, but you understand where the mind is at. They want to ensure that their citizens are a part of the industries that will develop their country, because not every type of learning is book and paper. Some is experience. So learning how to run these businesses and that is also education. But the point being, the focus, and it brings me back to your original comments, the focus has always been for the UNC and good governance, education, developing human resource. That's why we had the most scholarships. That's why we had the widest gate assistance. That's why you had, when children come to school, box lunches. So you aren't learning when you're hungry, right? You have all of these things that were done to ensure that when a child sits in his school to learn, he is focused, he is taken care of. The only thing he has to study is what has been put up on that blackboard. Well, blackboard at one point, and then it became laptops, right? And that is the point. You gave people the tool. And one of the worst things that will come out of this COVID that we went through is we still aren't quite sure what is going to be the effect of 2 or 3 years of children having to stay home and not being able to go to school, socialize and learn, and not being able, even for a large percentage of our country. I know, because I found, even though things were not great, I found some funding and whatever to assist 1 or 2 kids in my area, and people I knew to buy I gave away an old phone to one so he could do his classes on a phone, a fire stick or something, so they call it, those kind of tablets. And you gave it when you help people. But that gave you a sense that there was a large percentage of children who weren't educated for 2 years. And so what is going to be the consequence of that?
Well, you make a very important point that you cannot learn when you are hungry. So going forward, I am not seeing that we will have any bright students coming out of school in a hurry, because this government have almost everybody hungry.
Well, not everybody is a Pastor Pandey and a Kamala Prasad Bisesar who went to school barefoot and learned and studied and beat book and became brilliant people.
Guyana is doing very well in the educational sector.
Yes, they top in.
When I was in Guyana, I was shocked when I saw these young inspectors and superintendents of police. I think I'm talking about young boys, and I was inquiring, well, what's so different about Guyana and Trinidad? And then I get to realize what they do, Kyle, is that you come straight out of school with a certain level of education, and you go straight to a rank if you so desire to enter the police service. And so Guyana is doing very well. We have seen as of recently the number of passes that the students in Guyana got. And I know at one time,
I think there was a young man who topped something.
Yeah.
Topped in the world,
Yeah, we were doing very well in education.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what went wrong? What I mean, apart from I know what went wrong, but it can't be so drastically wrong that they have no vision, they have no view as to what to do.
Yeah, answer your own question. Yeah, you hope is not, but, and I hate to sound like a politician, but elections have consequences. Unfortunately, there I said it. Elections have consequences, but it's not just the election; it's the shift in policy.
Yeah.
To me, my understanding, and if you look at, the education has not been a priority for this government. Now, and another thing that has not been a priority for this government, which assists a large extent in education, is sport. Mm-hmm. Sport has not been a priority for this government. I think Anil has dealt with that ad nauseum. But you have a minister of sport who I don't think ever kicked a ball in her life, right? Geraldine doesn't care about anything in sport. She knows nothing. She says her sport was jogging or something like that, right? So, jogging is not a sport. Jogging is what you do to get fit for a sport, right? So, really, it's been a total collapse in terms of the priorities of education and a shifting towards, I suppose, where we could discover oil and gas, where we could sell, what industry we could get. And their focus has really been on consolidating power for themselves. When UNC got into power, what they did was try to enhance social sectors like education, like poverty alleviation and that kind of thing. Seems that the PNM's focus is just preserving power. That's why they've machinated and strategized. And I saw somebody a comment on Facebook talking about strategy. Well, I don't know what strategy you need, right? Yeah, I mean, strategy, you have to strategize, yes, in politics. But what other strategy you're talking about? You should be serving the people. That should be your number one strategy.
Going forward from at this point, what you think that the government should do in order to bring the educational system, I want to start by saying back where it was.
Well,
I am trying to say.
I want to say two things to that question. I'm going to say one thing. Leave the Concordat alone. And the second thing I want to tell you is to invite Miss Anita Haynes onto your show. Yeah. And I'm sure she will tell you about all of the ills in the education system. And what is it? I mean, you had Dr. Gopi Singh here who gave you a thing, but Ms. Haynes, if you listen to Anita Haynes speak on education, is sheer brilliance. She clearly understands the sector. She fully understands the minutiae of what is going wrong and where the policies have failed them. And she could bring statistics, policy, everything to you. So I would say the answer to that one is to invite Ms. Haynes on your program to deal with education. But my recommendation, the first thing I would say is leave the Concordat alone. Leave the Concordat alone. That must be their first policy.
So just to change the conversation a little bit.
And when the United National Congress gets in the government, I am going to recommend that we enshrine the Concordat into the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. So if anybody wants to interfere again, they have to get 2/3 majority in the parliament. That would be my first legislative recommendation to the next government.
Just to change the conversation a little
Before
bit.
you change the conversation, I understand that the Manisaba may have initiated some sort of reaction.
Well, it's there going. When I mean change, it's right there going.
You mean accelerate.
All right.
You mean accelerate the government.
So that's a change the conversation a little bit.
Yeah.
How far you prepared to go to defend the Concordat?
There's a place in London called the Privy Council. We have filed a case. I mean, hopefully we don't end up there, but if we have to go there, we go in there. And I want you next to me when Lord Reid is asking about the right to protest, right? And Lady Black is asking, well, why didn't the police give permission? And I have to answer them. That is why I want to go to the Privy Council to explain. And that is the same place we have to go in this case, if necessary. I believe in our judicial system, but if we have to go to the Privy Council, which is our highest court according to the Constitution, that is where we will go to deal with it. And I want people to understand, people say this Concordat is just a piece of paper, etc. The law recognizes that something that is called legitimate expectation. Legitimate expectation, that's what the law recognizes. What is a legitimate expectation? A legitimate expectation in law is when a public body makes a promise to a citizen, either through policy or a direct representation, that it will act in a certain way. So if a public institution, let's say immigration, says passport offices will be open and they will do X for you to get your passport. It may not be in a law, but it may be a policy. You are entitled as a citizen to say, well, hey, as long as I comply with that, I will get my passport.
Right.
It can't wake up the next day and change it and then go another day and put something else. That would be what we call in law unlawfully frustrating your legitimate expectation. Now, that doesn't mean that a government can't change policy. It can do so, but it must do so fairly, and that is why you have consultation. Because if you want to change a policy, you have to fully and properly consult, and it must be rational. You can't just willy-nilly get up and say, well, you know what, education is being delivered in schools, let's start giving education in the beach, right? Yes, the government can change policy, but that is totally irrational. And therefore, our first ground of attack is legitimate expectation. The Concordat was given by and made representations by the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago in 19 whatever. Schools have followed that. They've relied on those representations. That is how things have gone for the last 60 years. It's what we call a settled practice. And therefore, that has now become encrusted and entrenched as a legitimate expectations that schools have. And as a result of that, we want to enforce our legitimate expectation. If the government wants to change that, it must engage in proper consultation. Proper consultation. The other point that people should understand is that our Constitution actually has not only a right of religious worship, it also has the right of a parent or guardian to choose the school for his ward or child to be educated in. That's a constitutional right. That right actually is not in every constitution you'll see in the world, you know.
So let me ask something right here.
Mm-hmm.
So where the government have set up these catch pit areas.
The what?
Catch pit areas, they call them.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that, look, if you live
catchment,
in San Fernando,
yeah,
then you must only go to a school in San Fernando.
Yeah.
In relation to what you just said, the right to choose.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's plainly. Now, you could have what you call zoning if you rely on public transportation, benefits, etc. You can't expect, you don't have a right particularly to defeat that, especially if you're relying on those things. But ultimately, you have a choice of what school you want. It may be for other factors that you could deal with that and compensate for it. But the point is, the constitutional right is a right of your school of choice. That's why we used to have, you put on, well, I don't know what it is now, you put on the schools you want, the top 5, and if you make the mark, you go. Mm-hmm. There would obviously be criteria to get in the school that you want, or else everybody could go to NAPS, right? So it has to be tempered with a system. But ultimately, that constitutional right, and our argument with that constitutional right, reflects the Concordat. Because if you wanted to send your child, it's like a conjoint, it's like a combination of your right to religious expression and the right to choose the school that you want. Because if you are a Muslim or a Hindu and you want your children or child to go to a Hindu or Muslim school, you have the right to do that. Now, that doesn't mean that those schools would exclude people. And there are many teachers of different faiths that attend Hindu schools and Muslim schools, etc. That's not the issue. The issue is that the schools want the ability because they know best. They understand their school culture. How much times you hear in a government school that some teacher, the children complain about some teacher. She was home, he or she stayed home, they don't teach good, they're doing something else, always on their phone, you know? And all the denominational schools are saying is, look, we want to be able to screen our teachers and have our teachers, so send the applications here first and we will make our recommendations. That's what they want to know, and that is what they want to take away.
I saw recently a teacher cussing up some students in our class. And I also know in my son's school there are some cussing teachers there too. I know some of them there. But again, the level of discipline that we see emanating out of these denominational schools, I mean, the government school is left wanted because we're not seeing the aggression in these government schools by the teacher to enhance the ability of the child and to press forward with that learning. As a matter of fact, they have it at a place that the teacher, you come to school, the teacher teach, she get fed up, she don't teach, she go out, she come. So we have to do what we have to do, and the country must be aware. You see, I realize that we live in a country that is very, very ignorant. Very ignorant. In nearly every form, this country ignorant. Because as of recent, I had a discussion, somebody was telling me, boy, it's about a particular school in Super, your child, you can't get your child to go there at all. You have to either be working in the bank, your family, you have to be this, that. And I willfully went just to see. And my child inside. And not only one, you understand? Joshua went there, Sion went there, Shinil went there, Omar went there. Everybody went there. I know everybody started coming to calling names now.
I want to say who's the wicket keeper. Which one is the fast bowler?
And everybody started coming and I say, Archie, especially, you know, I know Archie. So the point I'm making is this. I think the denominational schools have a certain standard, and it would be very, very, very great if we are able to get the government schools to come up to that standard.
Well, as I said, there are good government schools as well. Nobody says that. Nobody says anything different. As I said, I went to one, Queen's Royal College. People somehow think it's a Catholic school. It's actually a fully government school. So we had the plight of government schools there. But it was a good school, right? And there are several others, but nothing is wrong. In fact, I only went to government schools. I went to a primary school called Shoguna's Government. I grew up Hard Knocks, right? And then I went to Queen's Royal College, right?
So we have about 10 minutes. Actually, we want to open the phone lines. Anybody have any question for Mr. douglAR Singh?
On the Concord Act and education. I'm not commenting on any letter and any petition and any motion and any Congress. And I will interpret the UNC Constitution, but not in this context, in other contexts.
Yeah. So we'll open the lines. Anybody want to? But
if anybody want to talk about it, I will listen.
Ask any questions in relation to that, so we will make it available so you can call. The number 3735488, 3735488. So the lines are open, and you feel free to make a call. So back to Kyle. So I think that the people of this country need to stand up behind the denominational schools. I will try to see. Welcome, caller.
Good night, Comrade Archie. Council.
Good night, douglAR Singh.
And Archie, you see what the council is talking about is that our political leader higher level of education will able to show that the PNM, Keith Rowley, and his mischief, we could identify the right, and you'll see where they are just showing them that when discipline and tolerance is expressed in the denominational school, what is really they want to separate the goat from the sheep is to get at the teachers and them so they can put them on contract. Because every time the public servant, PSA have a negotiation and salary, the wage will go up, remember the government paid. So they are trying to break it now so that they will have everybody on contract. But in the Concord Act, they are responsible for the rules and regulations. And yes, let's imagine, I am a Hindu, and I want my child to learn a little bit about the prayers and the rituals to continue. And I get not discriminated. A teacher who will not like to be part of that sitting in to listen to those things and say it's against my religion. You see it happen in other schools when a child wanted to wear a certain religious wear. So the whole long about it is to really get at the teachers and the power over the teachers.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller. We have 10 minutes. We will kind of share it up a little bit. So the number to call is 373-5488. And you could get your calls inside now. Any questions or comments you want to share with the attorney. A matter of fact, we have about 3 attorneys here. So if one can answer, the next one will.
Yeah, you know, I know we're speaking about the Concordat, but I am very excited about the pre-action and legal action that the Mahasabha is taking. All right, let me take the call.
Yeah. Welcome, caller.
Hello?
Yes, caller, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon to everyone. Let me be very quick. I had an experience after I left school, and I got a chance to work in Bermudas on a truck that goes to school to deliver biscuits and so on to the different schools. Mm-hmm. And what Mr. Kyle said here recently was very accurate about the discipline. Now, I'll give you just one instance here in Port. On Wednesdays, we used to go for a speed. Mm-hmm. We used to cover the east. So on Wednesdays, we would go to the convent and so on. Now, when we go to the convent, we pong on the door. Now, that gate locking 8 o'clock on the butt. Now, when you knock the gate, somebody will pull a slot will open. What you want, we come to deliver Bermuda's biscuits and corncoles and so on. Then somebody will open the gate and lock and you deliver to the cafeteria, you leave. Just a few hours or minutes ago, we go to another school in Forestry, we reach Mucaraco St. James. And everybody outside. You don't need school going on. You don't need school over. You don't, and it's just chaos. And that's 9 to 10 in the morning. And all the different schools except the national schools where we go to do all the deliveries.
Wow.
Have this thing where the gate is locked at 8, and maybe if you come late, you have to go and bring your parents, and discipline that it will take. So the discipline is the most important factor that I have observed in that. And that was in the 80s. So you are quite right when you talk about it. The discipline is the problem. The parents, you get a letter to have to come and find out what's going on with your child. Mm-hmm. And it's these little things that help bring a stability to the whole school. So thanks very much for the call.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah, and before that caller call, what I was saying is, remember last time you came in here, Kyle, and I was saying, well, I have faith in people like the gentleman that just sat down next to you. You see, very often in all these shows, we keep talking about Rowley doing what he want, and what we could do. And to me, he continued doing what he want. But I like this type of action that the Mahasabha took. It's not just to come on these talk shows and talk, because people need hope. Mm-hmm. And when I see people like the Mahasabha, they are the only group and the first people to jump out to take some real tangible action against this perceived oppression and discrimination that Rowley just want to run down your throat, and we just sitting down and have to take it.
So
I am really pleased with the action that the Mahasabha take.
Hello?
Welcome, caller.
Hello, I want to speak to Mr. Victor.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes. I want to already start again. I mean, UNC, I was a supporter of UNC. I live in City, but the whole Ruka is PNM. I born in Ruka. And nothing, Jacona and all I nothing. So we never thought them no carnival or nothing. Imagine that COVID with this PNM government. People staying sick and they still having carnival. They have money to the old people pension. They get in the kill the old people pension. They're suffering poor people and they have money to put for carnival for 3 years. You understand?
Yeah.
So this thing is a real mess. You have to get here. You have to move around, you know. You have to go, you know. That bitch had to go, you know. Thanks, Mr. Roberts, thanks.
Thank you, caller. This caller make me laugh. You know, yeah, that caller.
Industrial language.
Yeah, you had to go. Make me slip my thought. Sometimes going to just slip. So we say it now. But I agree, Archie. We had and you're right. We keep talking about Rowley doing what you want. Rowley doing this, Rowley doing that. Rowley doing this, Rowley doing that. Rowley doing the other. The government doing this, the government doing that. And it seems like it's a kind of panorama now. We just beating the pan all the time, and we just getting the same tune. I think they need the tune now. We are call. Welcome, caller.
Yeah, good night, Victor.
Yes, sir.
Archie. Listen, I just want to mention something that while I was young, it happened to us in school. When I attended the Marabella Junior Secondary School, and they had the religious instructions on a Wednesday, it had about 6 of us, 4 boys and 2 girls, and we used to go around in every religion they had, one day, going down the road. Until we completed all, even the Muslim and the Hindus we went to. So I don't see why the problem that have these people them coming up with this stupidness and them in Parliament. Why the children can't interact with everybody else as normal as human beings?
Yes.
No longer I should say life is better for me than now it is here. Right? Because I find there's too much stupidness going on with these big stupid. I can't say sensible people. It had to be stupid people. You understand? Mr. Archie, I'd like to know if I could come up in the studio and meet you sometime, maybe tomorrow. If you could give me a time, please.
Right, I will be here from after 12. After
I live
12.
right Marabella.
Yeah, after 12 o'clock tomorrow,
Could you
I'll
give
be
me a
in the
time?
studio. Yeah, you come anytime after 12.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, good night. Have a pleasant
Thank
night.
you, sir.
I know you said something there, and that's one of the reasons the Concord Act is good, because there are children of many different faiths that attend different religious schools. I, as I said, I went to a government school, Shogunas Government and Queens Royal College, and I had a neighbor, Afro Trinidadian, and he went to Vedic school, and it was a thing around Diwali. I used to feel embarrassed because he was saying to me, "Oh, Mata Chapita, Hindu prayers better than me," right? Because that's what they had in the school. He wasn't forced to learn it, but by being in the school, he learned about the Ramayana, learned about Hindu culture and prayers and things, and he put me to shame when I was at that age. So much so that it's only when I started working with Dinesh Rambali and doing Mahasabha work that I re-educated myself a lot in in traditional Hindu culture and that kind of thing. But that is one of the beautiful things about having these denominational schools. They offer students in different segments of society the opportunity to go into a whole different culture and learn and develop. It's integration at its best.
Omar goes to a Presbyterian school, and in that school, Kyle, every celebration
is observed.
Is observed in that school.
Yeah.
And it have days when they will come with Indian wear, it have days for African wear, it have days, you see East Indian children in African wear, you see in African children in East Indian wear when that time reached.
Yeah.
That is how unique it is.
Yeah.
You understand? And this is the love that we learn from there that really break down the Berlin Wall between us, where we talking about African and Indian.
Yes.
And the last caller was right. It's only coming out of the parliament we hear this dotish talk with black proud man and black this and Indian that and that dotish thing, But outside of that, the people live as one until the election bell ring.
That's why it's important. Social integration is important, and denominational schools allow that. They allow that. So I really don't understand why we have to get into this fight with the denominational schools. There's no good reason. Throughout the world, there are churches and religious bodies that have educational institutes.
The government wants to get its hand on every institution in this country.
Yes.
We've seen it. Let me tell you something about we in Trinidad. We just plain notice,
Yeah.
We seen exactly what the government doing, But Archie have a real point. We seen all what the government doing, but yet the people fail to do anything about it, Kyle. Fail to do anything about it. And I think it's Wade Mark have the story about I come for you. And
the Jews, they came for the teachers, the unionists, and then
And
when they came for me, there was nobody left to fight for me.
And that is what is going on in this country. And people, I don't know what in God's name I'm going to tell these people. You understand? I don't know. I sit down and type out something today. And I ain't use nothing from this. You know why? Because honestly, the people ain't ready for this guy. I type out this, I sit down behind a computer today, and I gave my daughter how I type in.
What is this? A motion? You type? Oh, okay.
And listen now, I tell you, I come with this and I just rest it down there because you know why? I say what? The people in this country ain't ready for this.
Well, so you can't, let me tell you something. You can't, it really takes, it's going to take some time to drill into people's heads what is going on in the country in terms of dictatorship. You spoke about that story by Wade Mark. That was from a famous poet, a poet during Berlin Nazi time.
Yeah.
There's another book called The Ordinary Men, and that book follows a certain police unit in Nazi Germany. And why it was so important is that police unit was made up of ordinary men, not Nazis, not people who had been indoctrinated with Hitler. It was ordinary men. But do you know that they were among the highest kills in concentration camps, or the murders of Jews? And the question asked, well, why? Why did they who were not indoctrinated in Nazism and that type of Hitler fanaticism, why did they commit some of the highest murder rates of Jews? And the reason is because they became indoctrinated into a system that even the ordinary man was willing to throw his principles and morals out, and for survival and for going along with the system, discard what you knew to be right. And it was an important study. And I think what we have, unfortunately, is a country of ordinary men. So what we really require now is men who are going to stand up, men and women, who are going to stand up and do the right thing and fight and not accept the status quo. Because if we do that, trust me, we wouldn't have to be asking for permission in Dragonfield. We will be part of Venezuela. We will be indistinguishable from Venezuela. So not Chavez, what's his name? Maduro might just let us go through and say, well, yeah, take it, it's yours.
But we are seeing a repeat of Hitler right in Trinidad.
Well, certainly that kind of totalitarian state. I mean, luckily we don't have any kind of genocide and thing, but totalitarian.
But the genocide is there not in the true sense of the word.
Yeah.
But the policies that has been implemented against all the institutions, that is what it is. Because when you could reach the point where you wrote your own constitution, something that was fought for and was put together that should govern all of us, and you as the head could betray that and override that and water that down. And
you raise such a good point, because it's a historical fact that the Weimar Constitution, which was what you call the German Constitution, the Weimar Republic is what Germany was on. The Weimar Constitution was one of the strongest constitutions in Europe.
Fox, hold on, we come into here.
It was one of the strongest constitutions in Europe. It enshrined liberty, rights, separation of powers, values, etc. And Hitler was able to rise. He was appointed by virtue of that constitution in accordance with it. And then he destroyed it.
Go ahead, Fox.
Yes. Good night again to the panel. Good night to the attorney.
Yes, brother.
Good night, good night.
Go ahead, Fox.
Yes, tell me, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, now we have to watch at what Rowley and them want to do to these schools. Now, Rowley don't like certain race in this country. And if they could pull you down, if they could get rid of this race and these people who learn the different language and things, Rowley want to get that cut out because of wickedness. Because there's no need to be troubling. Look how much years these schools going about like Sunday morning, and all of a sudden, look how much things going on in this country. To go to Hamburg, these people and the schooling. I don't see the sense in it. The only sense I see in is he want to get rid of a certain culture, and he's doing it his way. Because nobody is standing up against Rowley. We give him too much rhetoric. Rowley could do anything he wants. And I will say this: we need somebody to stand up with us to get out there and get rid of Rowley, because nobody is really not doing it on their own. We have. Somebody doesn't want to say what I want to say now. But the opposition, they have 19 seats, councillors, and different people in parliament, in position in parliament, and we're supposed to stand up and face Rowley face to face. If we face Rowley face to face, Rowley will not go this way. Rowley just get on like a raging bull just to frighten us. But if you stand up against a dog that is bad, just watch him in the eyes, stare eye to eye, the dog will stop doing his stupidness. This is how commandos train. The dog will rush you, but go eye to eye with them and you will put them down without even touching them. We have to stand up and stand up now. The opposition have to come. May I say camera come out, but he have 18 other people that could prepare people on the road and done with Rowley. We could stop him. Rowley is special in Trinidad and Tobago. Rowley is just a hypocrite and a parasite. Thank you.
Thank you, Fox. And Fox, let me tell you this. I ain't want to go there tonight. I ain't going there tonight. But I will say this. Fox, sometimes Victor Roberts, just feel that some people comfortable right where they are. I just feel that. I just feel that sometimes because, and let me tell you why I just feel that. I just feel that because there's a passion that should be existing as a result of what this government is doing. There's a passion should be existing to remove this government out of office with all that the government doing. We have a caller. Welcome, caller.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Good night.
Hello, good night, gentlemen.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I joined the discussion late, so forgive me. I don't know if I'm repeating a question that was probably asked earlier. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah. This has to do with the Dragon deal. To my recollection, Maduro was on $25 million US reward for his capture, and Delphi and all of them have charges against them. The U.S. interested in having them brought to justice. Have that been resolved so that we can now go forward with arrangements with Venezuela? Because the last time I checked, Venezuela assets were frozen and all that sort of thing.
No, sir.
I find this rather confusing.
No, sir. That issue is still outstanding. Those narco traffickers is still wanted by the U.S.
And we will be discussing that tomorrow, in tomorrow's program.
I'm having difficulty in hearing you.
So yeah, well, I think we'll You're right. The charges have not been discontinued. I think they're still indicted by United States. But I think tomorrow you all will get into the dragon deal with MP Parry, expert in energy and business and that kind. I think he's going to get into that. I heard him yesterday today. Yeah, he was very good.
So caller, the MP for Mayara Ruston Parry will be here tomorrow, and we'll get into that. So shoot your questions again tomorrow. We have our next caller there, actually.
Well, apart from that, if I may, please. Apart from that, if I may, please.
Yes.
I saw this afternoon where Renegade was given a street named after them, an area in Charlotte somewhere they're named after the band. And not a mention of Mr. Jit Samaru. So why was Mr. Jit Samaru not given some kind of accolade for his service, for his contribution, for what he actually did with Renegade as a steel orchestra, and his numerous panorama titles and his memorable arrangements that still live on today and other people emulate him? What, is that open, blatant kind of racism on the part of Stuart Young and the PNM? I was wondering.
Well, I think Camille Robinson Regis might be the best person to answer that question. Welcome, caller.
Hey, good night, Victor. Good night, Mr. Kyle Takal Singh, and good night to is Archie out there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good night, Archie. Good discussion, man. Mr. Takal Singh, in your history, man. The Weimar Republic, boy, and the Constitution that Hitler destroyed. You are a well-read young man, man. Very good. It was always the goal of the PNM to destroy the Concordat. That was the goal from the onset, right? To destroy the Concordat. They tried to erode it over time, and Mr. Taklal Singh explained exactly what are the origins of the Concordat and how the Concordat came into existence. Rowley now going after the Concordat is just a distraction. He's supposed to have better things to do than that, than to be going after a Concordat. You understand? He wasting time with that. Another thing. Mr. Roberts, I know why you're not dealing with any Palace School issues, because that was on the Express today, front page, Palace School, in the UNC. That is just a flipping distraction by the Express. That is a set of nonsense. So I want to tell you all, continue to doing the good work, continue bringing out the information, continue to challenge people.
Yeah.
The PNM supporters have not yet smelt the coffee. They have not yet woken up to the fact that their backs are against the wall, and what the PNM has destroyed: the education system, the economy, loss of jobs, the energy sector. They have not woken up to the fact that it's not working for them. They're still waiting on some miracle to happen, whereby Rowley would be removed and Robinson, somebody else would come in, Cheryl, somebody else would come in and save the day. Rowley is trying something with Gatsby Dolly as deputy political leader. So to shift focus on a fairer form or a pretty face to say, yeah, boy, that look like that's the future prime minister, so we go hold out for the while. Keep Kamala and them out, hold out. We don't like Rowley, but that person look like the future prime minister. But that and all, fire burn that. You all have a good evening and continue to be safe.
Thank you, caller. And caller, you're correct. You're very well correct with what you said. The strategies of Rowley seems to be working very well in the eyes of the PNM supporter. On the other hand, I think that more needs to be done from where I sit to keep the pressure on this government. And I am not going to support. Go ahead, caller. Yes, sir. Good night. On the other hand,
hello, good night.
Good night. Good night.
I have to hold on?
No, you have to talk on the phone. If you have a device on, you have to turn it down.
I am not going to support.
You have to turn down your device.
Turn it down.
Right.
Hello, good night.
Yeah, good night. Go ahead.
I'm calling from Tobago.
Right.
Yes, Tobago, welcome.
I just want to say
Go ahead.
no problem.
No, go ahead. We hear
I just
you.
want to say hello.
Yes, go ahead. We hear you. You may get a delay, but we hearing you. You go ahead and talk.
Right. I just want to say that Mr. Victor Roberts is doing a very good job. I'm from Tobago, the country. And I want to say good night to the panel there.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Rowley is just a hook. Today, I was listening to 104 this morning, and a lady called from Trinidad and say that Camilla should go. But I want to tell she that I want Camilla to bring a UNC party in Tobago. Because I don't want Miss Camilla to move from there because Tobago people want their back pay. And that is the only person could give Tobago people their back pay. So I don't want she to move now. So if them Trinidad and feel that she moving, I don't want she to move. We don't want she to move. That's why I want UNC to get a party in Tobago.
Okay.
You understand? So we can get things done over here because nothing is happening over here. Over here is like a dumb dog in Jerusalem right now. Nothing is happening in Tobago.
I plan to come to Tobago very soon and do a visit. So we'll announce it when we come in.
That is all I want to say tonight.
Thank you. So, caller, we plan to come to Tobago at some point in time this year.
Yeah.
We'll be starting a program throughout Trinidad and Tobago. It was supposed to start tomorrow, but we will be accommodating Ruston Parry tomorrow here, the MP for Miaro. Next week, Friday, we will be starting that program on the field. So, Tobago will see us. Tobago will see us. So thanks for your call and continue to tune into the program. But as I was saying, I think that more needs to be done from where I sit to keep the pressure on this government, because we just cannot be raising issue after issue after issue and allow those issues to die, Kyle. So I could come from, let me just come last year alone, the amount of issues. And out of the amount of issues from last year, I think we just had to do better. Welcome, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, Silver Fox here. Silver Fox keep telling Robbie that we need UNC in Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
We need them in Tobago. We under pressure. Tobagonians under pressure. We want help, Robbie.
Fox, we will come to Tobago. We will come to Tobago. Don't worry.
We want help over here. We like a sitting duck. We vote some people here, Robbie, and we don't know what's going on. We are hearing from them. We are hearing nothing. Like they're dead. Like we vote 14 dead people. Right now in the land of the living dead. Robbie, you're a part of Tobagonians, you're a robot. And almost the whole of Tobago is robots. You're a part of Tobago. You're a brother with me. You're a brotherhood of the robots and all of us in Tobago.
Yeah.
You should be in Tobago already. I don't know what you doing in Trinidad. Sit down all the time, so. Over here, want you.
Fox, you come down. You come down.
Tobago too.
You gotta go to Tobago, guys.
We want Miss Camilla to bring a party in Tobago because the only way out for Tobagonians, we don't know who to vote for again.
Tobagoans don't know who to vote for again. Right? The PDP dead. They're dead because if they go back to the poll, PNM will win. So we want somebody else to vote for. The young people that vote for them, Robbie, they're not going back to the poll because they're not getting no work, they're getting nothing. You can't even call your parliament people again. They're changing the number right through. Thank you.
Well, sad. Fox, your boy will come down to Tobago. Me and Kyle and them will come to Tobago some weekend. Some weekend we will come down, we go check you. They go take we about, we will go somewhere, we gotta get blue food. We gotta eat all the blue food down in Tobago. So we coming. But as we looking to wrap up, Kyle, I think that the people understand. Well, let me take back that in a certain way. I think a lot of the people of this country seen what is happening, but just seeing alone is not good enough. We had to act up on what we are seeing taking place. Welcome, caller.
Good night, Comrade Roberts.
Yes, sir. Good night.
Council, Archie. Comrade Roberts, I want to ask you, through you, right? To ask Mr. Fox that if he could locate 4 areas that he could sponsor, the areas that we could get set up an office free of charge and they can help finance it, right? To pay the little bills and things. We will, the leader will send our Tobago Affairs member across there, Obika, to show them and start to select people to represent them. But we need an office, we need a spot. But if we don't get a spot, everything costs money. And since they are begging out and they want the UNC to come over, if they can help us get a spot. And then we see how serious the Tobagonians really want to come out of the bondage and they want UNC. Good night and God bless.
All right, caller. Well, Fox here. Don't worry. Yeah, Kyle. Any closing remarks as we wrap this thing up here this afternoon?
Well, I think that we want to tell the government, prepare for battle. Certainly the Mahasabha is willing to take it all the way and do what it has to do to protect the education of children, not only in their schools, but throughout all the nominational schools and therefore the entire country. I know that many UNC voices have been added to that. Yours, Ms. Haynes, Mr. Gopi Singh, several others, Mr. Rambali especially, who is part of the legal team. We need to preserve the things that are important to us in our society, and we believe that the Concordat, and it's not just a document, the arrangements of the Concordat and the sacrosanct nature, the holy nature of education in our schools are very important to us, and we want to defend that at all costs, because ultimately an educated society is a society that will thrive and prosper, and that is essentially what is at the heart of this fight to defend the Concordat.
Take a note there from Shin. Take a note. I want to try to get Miss Haynes, Anita Haynes, to come and share some light on. You see, I just don't want to be talking about the problems, but I also want to hear about some of the solutions. You understand, Kyle? So I will try to get Miss Haynes once she is available sometime next week, if she is available, to come and let us go through some of the proposals that would be able to correct the educational system in this country, because I think education is too much of an important asset in one's life for us to be playing along and allowing governments to play around and interfere and tweet until they tweet the whole thing out of hand. So I will work on that. I will work on that to get that up and running. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be coming on this. We will be going to hitting the streets next Friday. Actually, we had douglAR Politics Saturday. Tomorrow we here Tomorrow we hear MP.
I'm not sure about douglAR politics Saturday because you remember Anil is the Northeast coordinator and he is the party's flag bearer in the Northeast, so he might be doing a lot of mobilizing. But he's rarely have a broad back and very likely might be able to make it to the show. But we don't have confirmation at this time.
All right. So tomorrow we on at 6:30. Rustan Pare will be here. He attended the two-day energy conference and he will give us a whole synopsis as to the way forward and of course help you to understand what we are facing in the energy sector. I know we heard the Prime Minister tell us sometime recently that we have about 10 to 12 years of oil and gas remaining. I know he's a geologist, but
who's that, Rushton? Oh, Rowley.
I know he's a geologist. I think I will leave it just so a geologist.
I know what back bringing me in there.
Right? So if he tell us we only had 12 years, then we got to take it for granted. But I take absolutely nothing the Prime Minister said for granted. Absolutely nothing. As far as I'm concerned, the Prime Minister is a blatant liar. He has lied on a number of occasions, including he not closing down Petrotrin, including Delcy Rodriguez and the PDVSA team came to discuss COVID-19. I don't know if it has put COVID in a tank. I don't know if COVID does run in a pipeline, but that is what they came to discuss. All right. So apart from that, ladies and gentlemen, here is where we will leave it for tonight. We want to say thank you for allowing us to intrude your homes through the World Wide Web, and we appreciate your calls. We appreciate your comments. We even appreciate those of you who support the PNM, your comments. It helps us to understand where you are. So we appreciate that also. So until such time,
we need more PNM people to be on the chat and watching.
Yeah, we need more PNM people to be on the chat because I think you will be educated. Yeah. All right? So feel free to join. And I want to tell people on the chat, you know, just allow them, leave them, give them a chance because plenty of my family was PNM too. So I know how it does go. They just try to come in easy and try to attack you and attack you.
Let not your heart be troubled.
Yeah, but they'll come in. All right? So stay blessed, stay safe. We out of here.
I have a political cemetery. It's not for people like you and me. It is for all them politicians. And I dig in their grave, no fork with my hand. I find some of them, they living too long. And every 5 years is the same old song. Some of them dead, just shame to lie down. So I prepare for them a burial ground. Rowley, my first grave for he. With joy in my heart, put him down with glee. All of them useless politicians, only making up numbers in my island. Al-Rari, I refuse body. I leave them Muslim, them to deal with he. Big smile on my face and with me bare hand. It's time to move trash from out of this land. Taking my time with he, I personally will prepare his body. Make sure he have a sardonic grin on his face. That's all he does do, that man is a waste. Bury he in the back of my cemetery. Turn he upside down, he face I can see. Look for the strongest grave digger to cover he. Not with the hand, put good fork on he. Gypsy, political grasshopper, I may feel a little pity cause he's my brother. But like Tarzan, he's swinging from vine to vine. It's time I help you to make up your mind. Fitzgerald, Rasta City, I know they go glad to get the body. Resi on beat and down for all to see. Drink 2 beers and watch go get happy. But Kamala, I not ready to bury. She is a strong, determined woman like me. cemetery. When she in power, I don't go hungry. And Calypsonian does get big money. She don't deserve no spot in my cemetery. I putting she in the center